The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. Every species in the known universe understood one simple truth: the strong ruled and the weak served. This was the way of things. This was the only law that mattered. The Drakkarian Empire sat at the top of this brutal order. They had conquered more worlds than any other species. Their warships darkened the skies of 1,000 planets. Their soldiers had never known defeat. And their king, High King Torvin, the Unbroken, was the most feared being in 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Torvin had earned his title through blood. He stood 7 feet tall, covered in scales harder than steel. His claws could tear through armor like paper. His golden eyes had watched 14 challengers die at his feet, each one thinking they could take his throne. None had even come close. When humanity made first contact with the galactic community, no one paid much attention. They were a young species from a small blue world at the edge of nowhere. They'd only discovered faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They controlled just 12 star systems. By the standards of galactic power, they were nothing. The Drakkarian Empire sent them a simple message: come to Drakkar Prime. Bring tribute and swear loyalty to the High King. This was how things worked. New species either submitted or were destroyed. There was no third option. Humanity sent Ambassador Lisa Moreno. Lisa was 53 years old. She had gray in her brown hair and lines around her eyes from years of difficult work. Before joining the diplomatic corps, she had negotiated peace deals in 3 of Earth's bloodiest conflicts. She had sat across from warlords and dictators and terrorists. She had talked when others wanted to fight. She had listened when others wanted to shout. Her ship landed on Drakkar Prime on a cold morning. The planet was beautiful in a harsh way. All black mountains and red skies and cities built from dark stone. Everything about it spoke of strength and conquest. A Drakkarian escort met her at the landing pad. They were smaller than their king, but still towered over Lisa by more than a foot. Their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. They looked at her the way a predator looks at prey. "You will follow us," the leader said. "The High King does not like to wait." Lisa nodded politely. "Of course, please lead the way." The walk to the palace took almost an hour. Lisa suspected this was intentional. They wanted her to see the might of the Drakkarian Empire. They wanted her to feel small. The streets were lined with statues of conquered species. Each one shone kneeling before Drakkarian victors. The buildings were decorated with the weapons of defeated enemies. The message was clear: resist, and this will be your fate. Lisa looked at everything with calm interest. She asked questions about the architecture. She complimented the craftsmanship of the statues. Her escorts did not know what to make of her. The obsidian throne hall was the largest structure Lisa had ever seen. It stretched for half a mile, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. The walls were lined with mounted skulls of defeated species, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Flames burned in brackets along the walls, casting strange dancing light across everything. At the far end of the hall sat the throne. It was made from fused bone, the remains of those who had challenged King Torvin and lost. And upon that throne sat the king himself. Torvin watched her approach. His advisors had told him everything about humans. They were weak, fragile, short-lived. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. They could be killed by a fall, by a disease, by simple exposure to the elements, by every measure that mattered in the galaxy. They were among the weakest species ever discovered. And yet this small creature walked toward him without a trace of fear in her step. Lisa stopped at the proper distance from the throne. Protocol said she should kneel. Every other species that had come before the High King had knelt. The Velthari had knelt. The Corvini had knelt. Even the proud warriors of the Vessian Confederacy had bent their knees. Lisa Moreno remained standing. The hall went silent. Every alien in the room stared at her. Some looked horrified. Others looked hungry, waiting for the king to destroy this impudent creature. Torvin leaned forward on his throne, his golden eyes fixed on Lisa with an intensity that had made warriors freeze in terror. "You were told to bring tribute," he said. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder rolling across mountains. "Where are your offerings, human?" Lisa met his gaze. "I bring something more valuable than tribute, High King. I bring a proposal." The hall erupted. Growls and hisses and shrieks of outrage came from every direction. A dozen species, all vassals of the Empire, expressed their anger at such disrespect. How dare this insignificant creature speak to the High King as if she were his equal? Torvin raised one massive claw. Silence fell instantly. "You dare to negotiate?" he asked. "Your people have not earned that right. You have conquered nothing. You have proven nothing. You control 12 meaningless systems at the edge of empty space. By what right do you stand before me and offer proposals?" Lisa did not flinch. "We have proven something, High King. We have proven that we understand what you do not." The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. Several of the vassal representatives took steps backward. Putting distance between themselves and this foolish human who was clearly about to die, Torvin rose from his throne. Standing, he was even more terrifying. His shadow fell across Lisa, like a physical weight. Every line of his body spoke of power, of violence, of absolute dominance. "Explain yourself," he said softly. The quiet was somehow more frightening than his thunderous voice. "Explain yourself quickly." Lisa reached slowly into her diplomatic pouch. 100 weapons trained on her. Energy rifles hummed to full power. Guards tensed, ready to cut her down at the slightest wrong move. She withdrew a small data tablet. "This contains the complete military analysis of your empire," she said. Her voice was calm, conversational, as if she were discussing the weather. Ship counts, fleet positions, defensive vulnerabilities. Also included are similar analyses of the Velthri Dominion, the Corvani Collective, and 11 other major powers in the galaxy. Torvin's claws dug into the armrests of his throne, leaving deep gouges in the ancient bone. "How did you obtain this information?" Lisa allowed herself a small smile. "We watched. We listened. We learned." She held up the tablet. "Humans are very good at watching, High King. It is one of our greatest strengths." The hall remained frozen. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. This was not how meetings with new species were supposed to go. They were supposed to kneel and tremble and offer their loyalty. They were not supposed to stand there calmly and claim to know the Empire's secrets. Torvin studied the human for a long moment. She was so small, so fragile. He could cross the distance between them in 2 strides and tear her apart with his bare claws. She had to know this. And yet she stood there without fear. For the first time in many years, High King Torvin, the Unbroken, felt something he had almost forgotten: curiosity. "Continue," he said. "Tell me what you think you understand that I do not." "I would be happy to, High King, but I should warn you, you may not like what you hear." Lisa Moreno stood in the obsidian throne hall with every eye upon her. She could feel the hatred coming from the vassal representatives. She could feel the curiosity coming from the king. She could feel the danger all around her, thick in the air like smoke before a fire. But she had faced danger before. She had sat in rooms with men who had ordered the deaths of thousands. She had negotiated with people who saw her as nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. Fear was an old companion, and she had learned long ago not to let it control her. "Your empire is built on conquest," she said. Her voice carried clearly through the vast hall. "You find a species, you defeat them in battle, you absorb their worlds and resources, then you move on to the next target. It has worked for 10,000 years. Torvin's eyes narrowed. "It has done more than work. It has made us the greatest power in the galaxy. It has made you the most feared power in the galaxy," Lisa corrected. "There is a difference." A rumble went through the assembled aliens. Several of the vassal representatives shifted nervously. This human was speaking truths that no one else dared to voice. Lisa continued, as if she had not noticed the reaction. "Fear is a useful tool, but fear has limits. Every species you have conquered remembers what you did to them. Every world you have absorbed contains people who dream of freedom. Every victory you have won has created enemies who wait for the moment when you are weak. We are never weak, Torvin said. No empire is strong forever. Lisa held up her data tablet again. I have studied your history. High King, the Dracorian Empire has faced 17 major rebellions in the past 1,000 years. You have put down each one, but at great cost. Your fleets are stretched across 3 spiral arms, trying to hold territory that resents your rule. Your economy depends on tribute from conquered worlds, tribute that must be extracted by force. Your military is the largest in the galaxy, but it is also the most overextended. Torvin's claws scratched against the bone of his throne. You speak of our weaknesses very freely, human. Perhaps you forget where you are standing. I speak of opportunities, Lisa said. That is different. She took a step forward. The guards tensed but did not move. Torvin raised a claw slightly, holding them back. He wanted to hear what this strange creature had to say. The Velthari Dominion has been building ships in secret, Lisa said. Their official fleet numbers are a lie. They have almost doubled the warships they have reported. They are preparing for something. Torvin's expression did not change, but something flickered in his golden eyes. This was information his own spies had not provided. The Corvani Collective maintains their treaty with you only because they believe you are stronger than them, Lisa continued. But they have been developing a new biological weapon, something that could target Dracorian physiology specifically. They have been testing it on prisoners from border skirmishes. Now Torvin leaned forward. His full attention was fixed on the small human before him, your vassal states. Lisa gestured at the assembled representatives without looking at them. At least 4 of them have been in secret communication with each other. They are discussing the possibility of a coordinated uprising, waiting for the right moment to strike. The hall exploded into chaos. The vassal representatives began shouting denials and accusations. Guards moved to restrain several of them. Torvin's advisors rushed to his side, demanding to know if this information could be verified. Through it all, Lisa stood calmly in the center of the storm. Torvin raised his claw again, and silence fell. He stared at Lisa with new interest. This was not a weak creature begging for mercy. This was something else entirely. How do you know these things? He asked. Humans have no spy network. You have no agents in foreign courts? You have barely been part of galactic civilization for a single generation. We have something better than spies, Lisa said. We have relationships. She began walking slowly across the floor, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. The guards tracked her movement but did not stop her. Humans are weak, she said. We know this. We have always known this. On our own world, we were not the strongest creatures. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We survived because we learned to work together, to share information, to build networks of trust and cooperation. Ow. She turned to face the throne again. When we entered the galactic community, we did the same thing. We made ourselves useful. We offered help without asking for anything in return. We traded fairly. We kept our promises. We listened to the problems of other species and offered what assistance we could. Torvin snorted. You made yourselves servants. We made ourselves friends, Lisa corrected. And friends talk to each other. They share secrets. They warn each other of dangers. She smiled slightly. The Velthari Trade Minister trusts our ambassador because she helped his daughter find medical treatment for a rare disease. The Corvani Science Council shares information with our researchers, because we have always given them credit for their contributions. A dozen species tell us things they would never tell you, because they know we will not use the information to conquer them. The hall was completely silent now. Every being present was listening with rapt attention. You rule through fear, High King, and you are very good at it. But fear only tells you what people do when they think you are watching. Trust tells you what they do when they think they are alone. Torvin rose from his throne and descended the steps. His massive form moved with surprising grace as he approached Lisa. He stopped just a few feet from her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his scaled body. You are clever, human, he said quietly. I will grant you that. But cleverness is not power. In my empire, power comes from strength. It comes from victory in battle. It comes from proving yourself worthy, Lisa nodded. I understand. Do you? Torvin's lips pulled back from his teeth in something that might have been a smile. Then you will understand what must happen next. If you wish to speak to me as an equal, you must face the rite of challenge. A murmur ran through the hall. The rite of challenge was ancient, sacred, and brutal. It was how disputes were settled in the Dracorian Empire. It was how leaders proved their worth. It was how the weak were separated from the strong. Lisa had known this moment might come. She had prepared for it. She had hoped it would not be necessary, but she was not surprised. What does the rite require? She asked. Combat, Torvin said. You will face a champion of my choosing. The challenge is to first blood. If you survive, you will have earned the right to speak as an equal. If you fall, your species will kneel before my throne forever. Lisa took a slow breath. She thought of Earth, of the billions of people depending on her. She thought of all the work that had brought her to this moment. She thought of what failure would mean. Then she straightened her shoulders and looked the High King directly in his golden eyes. I accept. Torvin stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh grinding sound that echoed through the hall. Prepare the arena, he commanded. Tomorrow, we will see what humans are truly made of. The arena beneath the palace had existed for thousands of years. It was a circular pit, 100 meters across, with walls of smooth black stone that rose 30 feet high. The floor was covered in sand mixed with something darker. The ground remains of those who had fallen in combat here above the arena. Viewing platforms circled the entire space. Every noble family of the Dracorian Empire had sent representatives. Ambassadors from vassal states filled the remaining seats. Word had spread quickly through the palace. A human had accepted the rite of challenge. No one wanted to miss the spectacle of watching the weak creature be torn apart. Lisa Marino entered the arena through a gate at the north. She wore her diplomatic uniform, simple dark clothing that allowed easy movement. She carried no weapon. The guards had offered her a selection of blades and energy weapons, but she had refused them all. The human comes unarmed, the announcer declared, his voice amplified to fill the arena. She faces the rite without blade or shield. Laughter rippled through the crowd. This would not even be entertaining. It would be over in seconds. From the south gate, her opponent emerged. His name was Keswick, and he was a champion of the arena. He had fought 37 duels and won every single one. He was smaller than the king, but still massive by human standards, standing over 6 feet tall, with muscles like coiled steel beneath his scaled hide. His claws had been sharpened to razor points. His teeth gleamed in the light. Keswick looked at Lisa and grinned. I will try to make this quick, little creature. It is the only mercy I can offer. Lisa nodded politely. I appreciate the thought. In the royal viewing box, King Torvin watched with interest. His advisor Sevik stood beside him, already looking bored. This will prove nothing, Sevik said. The human will die, and we will have lost a potentially useful source of information. Perhaps Torvin said, but I am curious to see how she faces death. You can learn much about a species by watching how they die. The signal sounded. The duel had begun. Keswick launched himself forward. He was fast, impossibly fast for something his size. He crossed half the distance in a single heartbeat, his claws sweeping in an arc that would cut Lisa in half. At the waist, she was not there. Lisa had moved the instant Keswick started forward. Not running, not jumping, just a simple step to the side. The claws passed through empty air, missing her by inches. Keswick spun, surprised, but not worried. He struck again, a downward slash that should have opened her from shoulder to hip. Again, she was not there. Another small step, another narrow miss. The crowd grew quiet. Keswick attacked with increasing fury. He was faster than any human could match. He was stronger than any human could withstand. His claws could cut through armor plate. His reflexes had been honed by a lifetime of combat. By every measure that mattered, he should have killed her a dozen times already. But Lisa kept moving. She read his attacks before he made them, saw the slight tension in his muscles that signaled each strike, noticed the direction of his eyes as he chose his target. She did not try to block or counter. She simply was not where his attacks landed. In the royal box, Torvin leaned forward. This was not what he had expected. "How is she doing this?" Sevik demanded. "She has no combat training. Her species has no natural speed or agility. This should not be possible." Torvin did not answer. He was watching too intently to speak. Lisa had spent 30 years learning to read people. She had studied body language until it was like a second language to her. She knew how to tell when someone was about to attack, about to lie, about to run. She had used this skill to negotiate peace deals, to prevent wars, save lives. Now she was using it to survive. Keswick was growing frustrated. His attacks became wilder, more desperate. He had never faced an opponent like this. Every enemy he had ever fought had tried to match his strength, to block his blows, to counterattack. They had all failed because he was simply too powerful. But this human was not trying to match him. She was not trying to fight at all. She was just moving, always one step ahead. 5 minutes passed. The crowd sat in stunned silence. The champion of the arena, undefeated in 37 duels, could not touch a creature half his size who was not even armed. "This is impossible," a Velthari ambassador whispered. "No one can move like that." But Lisa could. Because humans had not evolved to be strong or fast or armored. They had evolved to survive, to adapt, to learn. Their minds could process patterns faster than any other species in the galaxy. They could predict behavior, anticipate actions, read intentions in the smallest movements. Keswick lunged again, putting all his strength into one final, desperate attack. Lisa saw it coming from the moment he tensed. She knew exactly where his claws would go, exactly how his body would move. She stepped inside his reach. For one frozen moment, they were face to face, so close she could feel his breath on her skin. His claws swept past her on either side, missing by the narrowest margin. He was completely off balance, all his momentum carrying him forward. Lisa placed her hand against his chest and pushed. It was a gentle push. It should not have done anything to a creature of his size and strength. But Keswick was already falling, already off balance. And that small push redirected his momentum just enough. His own claw scraped against his thigh as he tumbled to the sand. First blood, the arena was completely silent. Then someone in the crowd started shouting. Others joined in. The noise built until it was like a physical force pressing down on the arena floor. Lisa stood calmly in the center of the sand, breathing hard but otherwise unmarked. She looked up at the royal viewing box and met the king's eyes. Torvin stared back at her. In 10,000 years of Dracorian history, no unarmed opponent had ever won the right of challenge. It should have been impossible, and yet Keswick struggled to his feet, blood dripping from the cut on his leg. His eyes were wide with shock and something that might have been fear. He looked at Lisa as if seeing her for the first time. "What are you?" he whispered. Lisa turned to face him. "I am human," she said simply. "We are not as weak as we appear." The noise from the crowd continued to build. Arguments broke out among the spectators. Some insisted the duel had been rigged, that some trick had been used. Others simply stared in disbelief at the small human standing victorious in the arena, in the royal box. Sevik was sputtering with outrage. "This changes nothing. She won through trickery, through deception. It proves nothing about human strength." "She won through understanding," Torvin said quietly. "Through patience and observation and intelligence. These are not tricks, Sevik. These are weapons we have never faced before." He rose from his seat and looked down at the arena floor. Lisa stood waiting, her uniform dusty, but her composure unbroken. "Bring the ambassador to my private chambers," Torvin commanded. "We have much to discuss." The king's private chambers were smaller than the throne hall, but still larger than most. Buildings on Earth, the walls were decorated with trophies from Torvin's personal conquests, weapons and armor and banners from 100 defeated enemies. A fire burned in a massive hearth, casting dancing shadows across the room. Lisa was offered a seat for the first time since arriving on Drakkar Prime. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. In Dracarian culture, only equals sat in the presence of the king. Torvin settled into his own chair across from her. His advisor Sevik stood nearby, still looking unhappy about everything that had happened. "You have earned the right to speak," Torvin said. "Now speak. Tell me what you want from this meeting." Lisa took a moment to gather her thoughts. The arena had been difficult, more difficult than she had expected. She was tired, and her muscles ached from the constant movement. But she could not show weakness now. Not when everything depended on the next few hours. "I want to offer you a partnership," she said. "Not a surrender, not a treaty of submission. A genuine partnership between equals." Sevik laughed harshly. "Equals, your species controls 12 systems. We control thousands. How can you call that equality?" "Because power is not just about numbers," Lisa replied. She pulled out her data tablet and activated a holographic display. "Let me show you something." The display showed a map of the galaxy, with different colors marking different empires and alliances. The Dracorian Empire was shown in red, dominating a vast swath of space. "This is your empire today," Lisa said. "Impressive by any standard. But now let me show you something else." The display shifted, showing lines connecting different points. Trade routes, diplomatic relationships, information networks, a web of connections that span the entire galaxy. "This is what humanity has built in 40 years, Lisa said. "We have trade agreements with 73 species. We have shared technology with 40. We have established research partnerships with 30. We have helped mediate 27 disputes between other powers." Torvin studied the display with interest. The web of connections was surprisingly dense, touching nearly every major power in the galaxy. "You have made yourselves busy," he admitted. "But what does this gain you? You have no territory. You have no military power. You have nothing that matters. You have trust," Lisa said. "And trust is worth more than you realize." She stood and walked toward the fire, her back to the two Dracorians. It was a calculated risk, showing vulnerability. But she needed Torvin to understand that she was not afraid. When the Thessian Confederacy had a famine 3 years ago, she said, they could not ask you for help. They were afraid that showing weakness would invite invasion. So they came to us. We organized food shipments from 6 different species, and the Thessians survived. Now they trust us with their secrets. She turned back to face Torvin. When the Outer Rim pirates were disrupting shipping lanes, none of the major powers wanted to commit their fleets to such a distant problem. We organized a coalition of smaller powers, provided intelligence on the pirate bases, and coordinated the attacks. The pirates were eliminated in 3 months. Now a dozen species owe us favors. "Favors are not power," Sevik insisted. "Favors are the foundation of power," Lisa countered. "Every species that trusts us is a potential ally. Every relationship we build makes us more valuable. And the more valuable we become, the more dangerous we are to ignore." Torvin was quiet for a long moment. He stared at the holographic display, studying the web of connections that humanity had built. "You are playing a different game than us," he said finally. "We conquer territory. You conquer relationships," Lisa nodded. "And relationships last longer than empires." This was the core of her argument, the point she had been building toward since the beginning. The Dracorian Empire was powerful, but it was also brittle. It depended on constant military superiority, on the fear of conquered peoples. On the ability to crush any rebellion before it could spread, humanity offered something different. Not a threat, but an opportunity. A way to build an empire that would not require constant warfare to maintain. "What exactly are you proposing?" Torvin asked. Elisa returned to her seat. "A council, not just between our 2 species, but open to any power that wishes to join. A forum for resolving disputes without war, a framework for trade and cooperation. A place where strength is respected, but wisdom is also valued." "You want us to share power?" Sevik said with disgust. "To dilute our authority among lesser species." "I want you to build something that will last," Lisa said. "Your empire is magnificent, High King, but how long will it survive? Another 1,000 years? 2,000? Eventually, someone will be stronger, Eventually, your enemies will unite. Eventually, the fear that holds your empire together will not be enough. She leaned forward, her eyes meeting Torvin's. But if you build something based on trust, on mutual benefit, on shared purpose, it could last forever. Not an empire ruled by one species, but a community that benefits everyone, including you. Torvin was silent. The fire crackled and popped. Outside the chamber, the palace was quiet, waiting to learn what would happen. "And what do you want in return?" Torvin asked. "No one offers something for nothing. What does humanity gain from this proposal?" Lisa smiled slightly. "A seat at the table. When decisions are made that affect the galaxy, we want a voice. Not dominance. Not control. Just the chance to be heard and to contribute. That seems like a small thing to ask for. It is everything we need. With a voice, we can build more relationships. With more relationships, we become more valuable. With more value, our voice grows stronger. It is a cycle that feeds itself as long as we are part of the conversation." Savek shook his head. "This is madness. We should simply conquer them and be done with it." "And what would that gain you?" Lisa asked calmly. 12 systems of no particular value, a population that would resist your rule, and the loss of everything we have built. All those relationships, all that trust, all that information, it would vanish the moment your ships appeared in our skies." She stood again and faced Torvin directly. "You can conquer us, High King. We cannot stop you. But in doing so, you would lose far more than you would gain. We are worth more to you as partners than as subjects." Though the room was silent, Torvin sat motionless, his golden eyes fixed on the human ambassador. She had walked into his throne room without tribute, stood before his court without kneeling, survived his arena without weapons, and now offered him a partnership as if they were equals. By every law of his empire, he should kill her. By every tradition of his people, he should reject her offer with contempt. But Torvin had not become High King by being a fool. He recognized opportunity when he saw it. And this small, fragile, impossibly brave creature was offering him something no one had ever offered. "Read before a future? I will consider your proposal," he said finally. "You will remain on Drakkar Prime as my guest, while I think on what you have said." Lisa bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, High King. That is all I ask." 3 weeks passed on Drakkar Prime. Lisa spent her days meeting with various officials, answering questions about humanity and slowly building relationships within the imperial court. She dined with generals who had conquered star systems. She walked in gardens with nobles who had ruled planets for centuries. She listened to their stories and shared her own. At first they treated her with suspicion. Many still believed she was a spy, a trickster, someone who had cheated in the arena. But Lisa was patient. She had spent her entire career building trust with people who did not want to trust her. The Dracorians were formidable, but they were not so different from the warlords and dictators she had faced on Earth. Slowly, opinions began to change. The generals noticed that she asked intelligent questions about their campaigns, showing genuine interest in their strategies. The nobles discovered that she remembered their names, their families, their concerns. The servants found that she treated them with respect, something they rarely received from off-worlders. Word spread through the palace. The human ambassador was strange, yes. She was weak by Dracorian standards, but there was something about her that commanded attention, something that made people want to listen when she spoke. King Torvin watched all of this with great interest. He had his spies report on every meeting she attended, every conversation she held. What he learned surprised him. She was not trying to manipulate anyone. She was not gathering intelligence or building a network of agents. She was simply being herself, curious, respectful, genuinely interested in the people she met. And somehow, that was more effective than any scheme his advisors could have devised. On the 21st day, Torvin summoned Lisa to his private chambers again. This time, he was alone. "I have made my decision," he said. Lisa stood before him, her expression calm, but her heart racing. Everything depended on the next few moments. The future of humanity, the balance of power in the galaxy, the possibility of a better tomorrow. It all came down to what this one king would say. "I have ruled this empire for 40 years, Torvin said. "In that time, I have conquered more worlds than any king before me. I have crushed every enemy who dared to challenge me. I have built the greatest military force the galaxy has ever seen." He rose from his chair and walked to the window. Beyond the glass, the capital city stretched to the horizon, a monument to Dracorian power. "And I have grown tired," he continued. "Tired of rebellions that never end. Tired of vassal states that hate us. Tired of enemies that multiply faster than we can defeat them. I have won every battle, but I am beginning to wonder if we can ever truly win the war." He turned to face Lisa. "Your proposal offers something different. Not just another conquest, but a new way of building power. A way that might actually last." Lisa waited, barely breathing. "I have decided to accept," Torvin said. "We will create this council you have proposed. The Dracorian Empire will take its seat alongside humanity and any other species that wishes to join." Relief flooded through Lisa, but she kept her composure. There was still work to be done. "Thank you, High King. You will not regret this decision." "I expect I will regret it many times," Torvin said with something like a smile. "Change is never easy, especially for a people who have known only conquest. But regret is not the same as error. Sometimes the right path is also the most difficult." The Treaty of Drakkar was signed 1 week later in a ceremony attended by representatives from dozens of species. It established the Galactic Council, a body where any member species could raise concerns, propose solutions, and vote on matters of common interest. The Dracorian Empire held a permanent seat, as did humanity. Other species could join by agreeing to the basic principles of the Council: peaceful resolution of disputes, fair trade practices, and respect for the sovereignty of member worlds. Not everyone was happy with the new arrangement. Within the Dracorian Empire, there were those who saw it as a betrayal of everything their species stood for. Among the vassal states, there were those who distrusted any offer that came from their conquerors. And across the galaxy, there were powers who preferred the old ways, who saw opportunity in chaos and profit in war. But the council held, slowly, painfully, with setbacks and crises, and moments when everything seemed ready to fall apart. It held. Lisa Moreno returned to Earth as a hero. Crowds gathered to see the woman who had faced down the warrior king and changed the galaxy. Politicians praised her courage. Scholars studied her methods. Young diplomats dreamed of following in her footsteps. She accepted none of the credit. "I did not change anything," she told reporters. "I simply showed them a different path. They chose to take it." King Torvin, meanwhile, found himself facing challenges he had never anticipated. Ruling through fear was straightforward. Building through trust was endlessly complicated. He had to learn to listen instead of command, to persuade instead of threaten, to compromise instead of conquer. It did not come naturally. There were days when he wanted to burn the council to the ground and return to the old ways. There were nights when he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. But there were also moments of something he had never expected: satisfaction, pride, even joy. When the council resolved a trade dispute that would have led to war under the old system. When former enemies sat together and found common ground. When species that had feared the Dracorian Empire began to see it as a partner rather than a threat. 100 years after the Treaty of Drakkar, historians looked back at that moment as the turning point for galactic civilization. The old order, built on conquest and fear, had given way to something new. Something that was still imperfect, still struggling, still finding its way, but something that offered hope. At the heart of this new order, quiet and patient and always watching, were the humans. They held no great military power. They controlled no vast territories. But they were everywhere, building relationships, sharing information, mediating disputes. They had made themselves necessary, just as Lisa had promised. Some species still called them weak. Some still dismissed them as insignificant. But those who paid attention knew the truth. The humans had done something no other species had managed in 10,000 years. They had faced the warrior king, not with weapons, but with words. They had offered not submission, but partnership. And they had won not through strength, not through conquest, but through understanding. In her final years, Lisa Moreno often thought about that first meeting in the Obsidian Throne Hall. She remembered the fear she had hidden behind a calm exterior. She remembered the moment when Torvin had accepted her proposal. She remembered the look in his eyes when he realized that power could mean something more than domination. "We did not make them change," she wrote in her memoirs. "We simply showed them that change was possible. That is all any of us can do. We cannot force others to be better. We can only offer them the chance and hope that they take it." The galaxy was not perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better than it had been. And that, Lisa knew, was enough. It had to be enough, because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They built. And they never, ever gave up. The stars were vast and cold and indifferent, but humanity had found its place among them, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. Partners, friends, builders of a better future. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all.